Deep space was quiet, but not empty. The listening posts on the moon and aboard old satellites picked up strange signals now and then. Most were noise or echoes from long-dead stars. But this time, it was different. The message came through like a whisper lost in wind, broken, weak, and repeating every few minutes. It wasn't human. That much was clear. The signal looped over and over. "Help, please, come." On Earth, people argued about what to do. Scientists tried to understand the language. Politicians worried about what might come next. Military leaders saw danger, but some saw something else: opportunity. Among them was Captain Luke Carter. He had been around long enough to know that space held more than just rocks and stars. He had fought in the Jupiter conflict, seen things no civilian would believe. When he heard the signal, he didn't hesitate. "We should go," he said in a meeting with the United Earth Defense Council. Not to fight, but to see. Most disagreed. They feared what could be waiting out there. What if it was a trap? What if the aliens were dangerous? What if they were dying? But the vote passed. Barely. A ship was chosen. The Freedom was old, once used for border patrol near Mars. It had been retired, left floating in orbit above Earth. Engineers worked hard to bring it back online. They patched up the hull, replaced key systems, and gave it a small crew. The team was made up of volunteers. Some wanted adventure, others just needed a job. Ana Garza was one of the best at translating alien languages. She had studied signals from deep space for years, trying to find meaning in the static. Tyler Bennett was a medic, calm under pressure and good with people. Kyle Murphy ran the engine room like a kingdom, making sure everything stayed in working order. They weren't heroes. They were just people who said yes when most said no. The mission was simple: locate the source of the signal, make contact, and report back. No weapons beyond standard issue. No soldiers unless needed. Just a small team going where no human had gone before. Weeks passed as the Freedom moved deeper into space. The crew settled into routines. Anna spent hours decoding parts of the message, but it was slow work. Tyler treated minor injuries and listened to worries. Kyle kept the ship alive. Then, after nearly 2 months of travel, they arrived. The planet was red and cracked, its oceans boiling away into the thin sky. Massive structures floated above the surface, glowing faintly. They looked like cities, suspended by forces humans didn't yet understand. "This place is dying," Anna whispered, staring out the view screen. Luke nodded. "Then we'd better figure out why." They sent out a message in return using basic symbols and math, universal languages. Within hours, a reply came back, not in sound, but in light. Pulses of color flickered across the floating cities. Anna worked fast. She translated what she could. "They're scared," she said, "and they need help." No one spoke right away. They had expected many things: warriors, monsters, maybe even gods. But what they found was a species on the edge of extinction. The Valari, as they called themselves, reached out again. Their voices were soft, almost musical. They asked for aid. Their world was breaking apart. They wanted to leave, to survive. Luke looked at his crew. They were tired, nervous, excited. He took a deep breath. "Let's go meet our neighbors," he said. The Freedom drifted closer, lights blinking and greeting. Somewhere far away, other eyes watched. And they did not like what they saw. Humans had answered the call. They hadn't expected Deathworlders to respond. Deep inside the red planet's orbit, the Freedom hovered like a silent guest. The floating cities above the surface pulsed with soft light, responding slowly to the human ship's presence. The Valari had sent an invitation, an image of a landing zone marked by glowing symbols. Luke Carter stood on the bridge, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the screen. "We go down," he said finally. "Small team." Ana Garza nodded. She had spent the last few hours trying to understand the Valari's language. Their speech wasn't spoken. It was sung in layers of harmonic tones accompanied by flashes of color from their skin. They were not just speaking. They were showing emotion with every word. Tyler Bennett checked his medical kit one last time. If they're asking for help, we better be ready to give it. The landing pod touched down gently on a wide platform made of smooth, dark stone. The air outside was thin but breathable. The crew stepped out carefully, scanning their surroundings. The Volari were tall and slender, taller than any human. Their bodies shimmered faintly as if made of glass filled with liquid light. They moved without sound, gliding rather than walking. When they spoke, it was like music layered over thought. One stepped forward, raising a long arm. Lights danced across its form. Anna listened closely, then whispered, "They say, 'Thank you for coming.'" Luke gave a small nod. "Tell them we're here to help." Communication was slow at first. Words didn't always match meaning. Gestures were misunderstood. But slowly, trust began to build. Over the next few days, the humans explored the floating cities. They learned that the Volari had once controlled their climate through massive energy towers. But something had gone wrong. Those towers now failed to regulate temperature or weather. They tried to fix their world, Anna explained later, but they broke it instead. Kyle Murphy studied the technology left behind. Much of it was advanced beyond human understanding. He found broken machines, shattered crystals, and signs of panic. Emergency doors sealed shut, power grids failing. Meanwhile, Tyler treated injuries among the Volari. Many had been hurt during recent storms. Some had fallen from the floating platforms. Others showed signs of sickness caused by exposure to toxic air. Life on the planet was growing harder. Survival was no longer certain. Luke met with the Volari leaders often. They asked for relocation, somewhere safe where they could start again. Anna translated the request, and Luke promised to consider it. Back aboard the Freedom now, the crew discussed what they had seen. "They need more than just supplies," Kyle said. "They need a new home. And we don't even know if there's a place for them," Tyler added. Luke looked at the stars outside the window. "We brought tools for terraforming. Maybe we can make something work." Anna hesitated. But what if they don't all want to leave? That question lingered in the air. Not all the Volari had greeted the humans warmly. Some watched from a distance. Others avoided contact entirely. Whispers spread among them. Rumors that the humans might take something they shouldn't. Luke knew that helping was never simple. Sometimes aid came with cost. As night fell on the dying world, the Freedom remained in orbit, silent and waiting. Below, the Volari sang in sorrow and hope, and far away, unseen eyes watched still, waiting to see what the Deathworlders would do next. Deep inside the floating cities, not all Volari welcomed the humans. While some reached out with hope, others whispered warnings in harmonic tones. The humans had come to help, but help was not always trusted. Luke Carter felt the shift in the air. At first it was small, Volari avoiding eye contact, messages delayed, supplies left unattended. Then came the silence. On the fourth day after landing, Ana Garza noticed something strange. The translation logs showed inconsistencies. Some of the Volari were sending mixed signals, pleas for aid one moment, and quiet warnings the next. "They're not all the same," she told Luke during a private meeting aboard the Freedom. "Some want us here, others don't." Luke frowned. "What are they afraid of?" Anna looked down at her notes. "Maybe they think we'll take more than we give." Meanwhile, Tyler Bennett treated an increasing number of injured Volari, not from storms or accidents, but from fights. Wounds that didn't match natural causes. Bruises, broken limbs, even burns. He reported his findings to Kyle Murphy, who had been overseeing the setup of human equipment on a nearby moon suitable for relocation. "This isn't just panic," Tyler said. "Someone's turning against their own." Kyle shook his head. "We came here to save lives, not walk into a war." The humans had assumed the Volari were united in their desperation. Now that assumption was breaking apart like the planet beneath them. Back on the surface, tensions flared when a group of Volari approached the human base under cover of darkness. They did not sing or flash lights. They moved in silence. The security drones detected them first. Alarms rang through the camp. Luke grabbed his gear and rushed outside, weapon raised. A voice called out. Anna recognized it. It was Vera, one of the leaders who had spoken for peace. "We need to talk," she said, her body glowing faintly in the dim light. Luke hesitated, then lowered his weapon. "Talk." Vera stepped forward. Behind her, other Valari watched from the shadows. "Not. All of us wish to leave," she said. "Our world is dying, yes, but some believe we must stay, to suffer as our ancestors did. Only the enlightened deserve salvation," Anna translated slowly, her voice tight. "They think leaving would be wrong, a betrayal." Luke crossed his arms. "So they'd rather die than go with us?" Vera did not answer right away. Then she nodded. Before anyone could say more, a sudden explosion rocked the far side of the base. Smoke rose into the thin sky. The humans ran toward the source. Parts of the relief supplies were burning. Food modules, shelter units, all damaged beyond repair. Sabotage. Kyle arrived moments later, face covered in soot. "Someone doesn't want us helping them." Tyler checked the injured. 2 humans, 3 Valari. None were dead, but the message was clear. The humans were no longer just guests. They were targets. Luke ordered tighter security. He sent word back to Earth. Situation unstable, requesting guidance. But before a response could arrive, another message came in. This time, from a different faction of Valari. They wanted to meet. Alone. No humans allowed. The Whisper Wars had begun, and the freedom floated above it all, caught between hope and fear, between aid and conflict, between life and death. A quiet meeting took place under the red sky. Luke Carter, Anna Garza, and Kyle Murphy stood near the edge of the human base. Across from them, a small group of Valari waited in silence. These were not the same ones who had warned of betrayal before. These were new faces, new voices. Their lights flickered with uncertainty. The leader stepped forward. His name was Thalor, and his voice sang low and soft. "We have something you must know." Luke crossed his arms. "Then speak." Thorin's body pulsed with color. He was afraid. "Not all of us fight for peace. Some want more than just to survive." Anna listened closely, translating as he spoke. "They're saying there's a faction among the Valari, one that wants power, not escape." Kyle frowned. "What kind of power?" Thorin hesitated, then answered. "A weapon, buried beneath the old capital. It was made long ago, never used, until now." Luke felt a chill run through him. "What kind of weapon?" Thorin's voice dropped lower. "One that can end life, not just here but across the planet." Anna's breath caught. She looked at Luke. "Like a bomb?" "Worse," Thorin said. "It was built to cleanse, to erase what they called the unworthy." Luke turned to Anna. "Translate everything. Now." Back aboard the Freedom, the crew worked fast. Anna pored over the translation logs while Kyle ran scans on the planet below. Deep beneath the ruins of the capital city, something large and metallic lay hidden. Energy readings were faint but stable. "This isn't just a weapon," Kyle said. "It's active." Tyler Bennett looked up from his medical station. "You're saying it could go off?" "If someone triggers it," Kyle replied. Luke stared at the screen showing the readings. "And if it does?" Anna swallowed hard. "Then this whole world dies." The humans sat in silence for a moment. They had come to help. Now they might be standing on the edge of a mass extinction. Luke stood. "We need to find out who has access to it." Thorin's faction offered to help. They led Anna and Tyler back, down to the surface away from the main human camp. Meanwhile, Luke and Kyle stayed aboard the Freedom Mo, watching the data stream in, but not everyone wanted the truth known. That night, a fire broke out in the human base. Flames spread fast in the dry air. Equipment melted, records burned. By the time the crew put it out, half the supplies were gone, and worse, Someone had taken Anna's notes. Luke's jaw tightened. They don't want us knowing about the weapon. Kyle wiped sweat from his brow. So what do we do? Leave? Luke shook his head. No, we dig deeper. Down on the surface, Anna and Tyler followed Thorin into the ruins of an ancient hall. Broken statues lined the walls. Cracked screens still flickered with old messages. There, Thorin showed them something terrifying. A record of the weapon's design. Its purpose. Its trigger. They called it the Final Light. Anna whispered. Tyler looked pale. Final Light doesn't sound like a warning. Sounds like a promise. As they studied the records, movement outside caught their attention. Shadows moved between the broken columns. They weren't alone. A voice echoed through the ruins. Sharp. Commanding. You should not have come here. Anna turned slowly. Another group of Velari stood at the entrance. Their lights burned red. The trap had been set, and the humans had walked right into it. The shadows moved fast. Red lights flared in the ruins as the new group of Velari stepped forward. They did not sing or flash their usual tones of peace. Their bodies pulsed with sharp, angry colors. Anna Garza stood frozen, her heart pounding. Tyler Bennett took a slow step back, his hands raised in what he hoped was a universal sign of calm. Thorin turned to face the newcomers. His voice rang out, sharp and full of warning. You have no right to be here. The leader of the Red Lit group responded with a low, echoing tone. Anna caught fragments of the meaning. Traitors, outsiders, and power. She whispered to Tyler. They're accusing him of betrayal. And us, of stealing their future. Luke Carter received the distress signal minutes later. Anna had sent a short burst message before dropping her communicator. We're compromised, under threat, need extraction. Kyle Murphy scrambled the landing pod while Luke grabbed weapons. They didn't know who they were dealing with, but they weren't taking chances. Back in the ruins, the standoff grew tense. One of the hostile Velari reached for something at their side. Anna saw it too late. A small device glowing with unstable energy. Before she could warn anyone, the device sparked and sent out a pulse. The ground shook. Dust fell from the broken ceiling. Alarms started blaring across the floating cities above. That was a signal, Anna realized. They've called for help. Tyler grabbed her arm. Then we need to move now. They ran, dodging between fallen columns and shattered walls. Thorin stayed behind, facing the others. He shouted something in Velari, but the response came in the form of a blast of energy that struck the ground near his feet. Meanwhile, the Freedom broke through the upper atmosphere, descending fast toward the surface. Inside the human base, all hell had already broken loose. A second group of Velari arrived, this time attacking the camp itself. They bypassed security drones and stormed the perimeter. Crates were overturned, machines smashed, the medbay set on fire. Kyle barely managed to lock down the ship's systems remotely. Without full control, the attackers tried to force their way inside. Luke arrived just in time. He and two other crew members opened fire, not to kill, but to stun. The attackers staggered back, stunned by the sudden resistance. "Get everyone aboard!" Luke shouted. Tyler and Anna burst into the clearing moments later, panting and covered in dust. They scrambled up the ramp just as more Velari appeared in the distance. The ship lifted off seconds before a wave of red-lit figures reached the base. From orbit, the Freedom watched as chaos spread across the planet. On the floating cities, lights flickered wildly. Some turned red, others dimmed in fear. Panic was spreading. Anna sat on the floor, catching her breath. "They think we stole the weapon." Luke looked at her. "Didn't we?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "We only found out it exists, but someone wants them to believe we took it." Tyler joined the conversation, his voice tight. "And now both sides blame us." Kyle checked the damage report. "We lost half our gear, and we don't even know who's really in charge down there anymore." Luke stared at the screen showing the planet below. Riots were forming, factions fighting in the streets, smoke rising into the thin sky. He turned to Anna. "Can you translate?" Their broadcasts? She nodded and pulled up intercepted messages. The words were clear. The outsiders have stolen the final light. Humans are hoarding power. They will not share salvation. Luke clenched his jaw. This isn't just about survival anymore. They think we're the enemy. Kyle looked up. So what do we do? Luke didn't answer right away. The mission had changed. They had come to help. Now they might have doomed the Volari forever. And deep in space, far beyond the red planet, another signal was sent, not to the humans, but to someone else. Watching, waiting, to see what the Deathworlders would do next. The shadows moved fast. Red lights flared in the ruins as the new group of Volari stepped forward. They did not sing or flash their usual tones of peace. Their bodies pulsed with sharp, angry colors. Ana Garza stood frozen, her heart pounding. Tyler Bennett took a slow step back, his hands raised in what he hoped was a universal sign of calm. Thorin turned to face the newcomers. His voice rang out, sharp and full of warning. "You have no right to be here." The leader of the red-lit group responded with a low, echoing tone. Ana caught fragments of the meaning: traitors, outsiders, and power. She whispered to Tyler, "They're accusing him of betrayal. And us, of stealing their future." Luke Carter received the distress signal minutes later. Ana had sent a short burst message before dropping her communicator. "We're compromised, under threat, need extraction." Kyle Murphy scrambled the landing pod while Luke grabbed weapons. They didn't know who they were dealing with, but they weren't taking chances. Back in the ruins, the standoff grew tense. One of the hostile Volari reached for something at their side. Ana saw it too late. A small device glowing with unstable energy. Before she could warn anyone, the device sparked and sent out a pulse. The ground shook. Dust fell from the broken ceiling. Alarms started blaring across the floating cities above. That was a signal, Ana realized. "They've called for help." Tyler grabbed her arm. "Then we need to move now." They ran, dodging between fallen columns and shattered walls. Thorin stayed behind, facing the others. He shouted something in Volari, but the response came, in the form of a blast of energy that struck the ground near his feet. Meanwhile, the Freedom broke through the upper atmosphere, descending fast toward the surface. Inside the human base, all hell had already broken loose. A second group of Volari arrived, this time attacking the camp itself. They bypassed security drones and stormed the perimeter. Crates were overturned, machines smashed, the medbay set on fire. Kyle barely managed to lock down the ship's systems remotely. Without full control, the attackers tried to force their way inside. Luke arrived just in time. He and two other crew members opened fire, not to kill but to stun. The attackers staggered back, stunned by the sudden resistance. "Get everyone aboard!" Luke shouted. Tyler and Ana burst into the clearing moments later, panting and covered in dust. They scrambled up the ramp just as more Volari appeared in the distance. The ship lifted off seconds before a wave of red-lit figures reached the base. From orbit, the Freedom watched as chaos spread across the planet. On the floating cities, lights flickered wildly. Some turned red, others dimmed in fear. Panic was spreading. Ana sat on the floor, catching her breath. "They think we stole the weapon." Luke looked at her. "Didn't we?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "We only found out it exists, but someone wants them to believe we took it." Tyler joined the conversation, his voice tight. "And now both sides blame us." Kyle checked the damage report. "We lost half our gear, and we don't even know who's really in charge down there anymore." Luke stared at the screen showing the planet below. Riots were forming. Factions fighting in the streets. Smoke rising into the thin sky. He turned to Ana. "Can you translate their broadcasts?" She nodded and pulled up intercepted messages. The words were clear. "The outsiders have stolen the final light. Humans are hoarding power. They will not share salvation." Luke clenched his jaw. "So what do we do?" Kyle looked up. "This isn't just about survival anymore. They think we're the enemy." Luke didn't answer right away. The mission had changed. They had come to help. Now they might have doomed the Volari forever. And deep in space, far beyond the red planet, another signal was sent. Not to the humans, but to someone else watching, waiting, to see what the Deathworlders would do next. The Freedom floated in silence above the dying world. Below, the planet burned with chaos. Riots spread through the floating cities. Red lights pulsed like angry hearts. The Volari were at war, not just with each other, but with the truth. Luke, Carter stood on the bridge, arms crossed, jaw tight. The mission had gone from aid to survival. Now it was something else entirely. "We have one shot," he said, looking at his crew. "Either we stop that weapon, or this whole planet dies." Anna, Garza sat at the translation console, her face pale. She had spent hours decoding intercepted messages. Both factions were preparing for final action. One wanted to use the weapon, the other wanted to claim it. "They don't even care if they survive," she whispered. "They just want to win." Tyler Bennett leaned against the wall, arms folded, and we're stuck in the middle. Kyle Murphy checked the damage report. The ship was still functional, barely. Half their gear was destroyed. Most of their supplies were gone. But they still had one thing no one else did: clear access to the weapon's location. Luke made his decision fast. "We go back down." No one argued. The landing pod touched down near the ruins of the old capital. Smoke rose from distant fires. The sky was dark with dust and fear. A small team moved out. Luke, Anna, Tyler, and 2 others. They followed Thorin's last known path into the depths of the city. Beneath the broken towers, they found what they were looking for: a sealed entrance marked with ancient symbols. The weapons vault. Kyle stayed topside, monitoring communications. "You've got 20 minutes before the atmosphere gets too thin to breathe." Luke nodded. "Then we move fast." Inside, the air was cold. Walls pulsed with faint light, remnants of a power long forgotten. Deep within the chamber, they saw it. The weapon was not a bomb, not a gun. It was alive, in a way. A massive crystal structure, humming with energy. Pulses of light ran through its core like veins filled with lightning. Anna stepped forward slowly. "This isn't just a weapon, it's an aware." Tyler looked at her. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but it knows we're here." Luke turned to his team. "We need to shut it down." One of the crew, Jason Reed, frowned. "We don't even know how it works." "Then we destroy it," Luke said. Before anyone could respond, movement, shadows at the edge of the room. More Volari arrived, but these were not the ones they had met before. These were soldiers, armed, armored, eyes burning red. "They're here to activate it," Anna realized. Luke raised his weapon. "Not today." Shots rang out. Stun rounds lit up the chamber. The Volari fighters staggered, but they kept coming. Tyler pulled Anna back as one of the attackers lunged. Kyle's voice crackled over comms. "You've got incoming, fast." Above ground, more forces were closing in. Below, the fight turned desperate. Jason took a hit and fell. Another crew member was pinned behind cover. Luke fired until his weapon clicked empty. Anna reached the control panel near the weapon. She scanned the symbols, trying to understand. "There's a failsafe," she shouted. "If we overload the core, it'll destabilize." Luke didn't hesitate. "Do it!" The Volari commander saw what was happening. He screamed a warning in his harmonic tongue. Then he charged. Luke met him midair. They crashed into the floor. Hands locked. Strength against strength. Behind them, Anna worked fast. She pressed sequences, flipped switches, triggered a shutdown sequence. Lights flared, alarms blared. The weapon began to collapse. Tyler grabbed Anna. "Time to go." Luke broke free, kicked the Volari commander back, and ran for the exit. Just as they reached the surface, the ground shook. A shockwave burst upward. The vault imploded. Fire followed. The Freedom lifted off moments later, pulling the survivors aboard. From orbit, they watched as the final light faded. The weapon was gone. So was the planet. And somewhere far away, Another signal was sent. Watching. Waiting. To see what the Deathworlders would do next. The Freedom left the red planet behind, its hull scorched and battered. Below, what remained of the Valeri world was silent. No more floating cities, no more lights in the sky. Just ruins and dust. Luke Carter stood alone on the bridge, staring at the empty space where a civilization had once begged for help. Now, there was nothing left to save. The mission had begun with hope. It ended in fire. Back on Earth, news of the event spread fast. The United Earth Defense Council called an emergency session. Reports flooded in from every corner of human space. Some hailed Luke and his crew as heroes. Others called them war criminals. "We stopped a weapon of mass destruction," one official argued during a broadcast. "They saved not just the Valeri, but every species near that system." But another voice rose in protest. "They destroyed the last chance of an entire people. We were meant to help, not decide who lives or dies." Ana Garza sat in silence as she watched the debates unfold on a small screen in her quarters. She had spent years believing in diplomacy, in the idea that humans could reach across the stars and offer peace. Now, she wasn't sure. She had seen fear in the Valari's eyes, not just of death, but of humans. Tyler Bennett read through the messages, coming in from other ships, colonies, and research stations. Some were simple questions. What happened? Did they do the right thing? Others were darker. Warnings. One message stood out. It came from a deep space relay near the edge of known space. Short. Chilling. They saw what you did. Kyle Murphy worked long hours aboard the Freedom, helping prepare damage reports and debriefing logs. He didn't speak much about what they had done. He just kept moving. Like if he stopped, he might think too hard about it. Luke finally broke, his silence when the council demanded answers. He stood before them, face tired, voice firm. "We went there to help," he said. "But we found something worse than dying. We found war, division, lies, and a weapon that could have wiped out an entire species." A council member asked the question everyone wanted answered. Then why destroy it? Luke looked straight ahead. Because if we left it, someone else would have used it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, someone would. There was a pause, then another voice. "And what about the Valeri?" Luke didn't flinch. "They're gone." After the hearing, Anna submitted her resignation. She couldn't be part of something that made decisions about life and death from so far away. She left the military, returned to academia, and tried to forget. Tyler wrote a memoir. Not about the politics, not about the battles, about the people, the ones they tried to save, the ones they failed. He titled it simply, "We Meant Well." Kyle stayed in service. He helped write new protocols for first contact. Stricter rules, clearer lines. No more assumptions, no more blind trust. Humans had touched the stars, and the stars had learned to fear them. Over time, the phrase Deathworlders spread beyond Earth's borders. It was whispered in distant systems, shared between traders, diplomats, and scouts. "Don't call for help unless you mean it," some warned. Because if humans come, they might be the end. In the quiet corners of space, old records were copied. Stories told around cold fires, of a ship called the Freedom, of a dying world, and of the humans who came bearing gifts, and left behind ashes. Somewhere far away, unseen eyes watched still, waiting to see what the Deathworlders would do. Next, the stars did not forget. Humans had gone where few dared. They had answered a cry for help, and in doing so, they had become something more than just explorers. They had become feared. Across the galaxy, stories spread. Some called them warriors, others monsters, but most simply referred to them by the name that had stuck since the Valeri incident, Deathworlders. Luke Carter disappeared from public life. He left the military, walked away from politics, and vanished into the quiet corners of Earth. Some said he lived in the mountains, far from cities. Others believed he had taken a ship and gone deeper into space, searching for something no one could name. Ana Garza never stopped speaking. She traveled from colony to colony, giving lectures, writing reports, warning anyone who would listen. "We must be careful," she would say. "Help is not always welcome, and power is never neutral." Her words were respected but not always followed. Tyler Bennett's memoir became required reading in medical schools across human space. Doctors, nurses, and medics studied his accounts of alien physiology, of pain and survival beyond Earth's borders. But more than that, they read about doubt, about guilt, about the cost of reaching too far. Kyle Murphy stayed in service. He helped shape the new rules of first contact. Protocols grew stricter. Missions were planned with care. Ships were no longer sent without full understanding of what waited beyond the stars, but still, humanity moved outward. Colonies stretched further. Trade routes expanded. New worlds were found. Some welcomed humans with open arms. Others shut their doors before a single word was spoken. Whispers followed every human ship. Have they come to help or to end us? In the years after the Valari mission, several species sent envoys to Earth. Some wished to trade, others came only to ask questions. "What happened on that world?" they asked. "Why did you destroy it? Will you do it again?" Earth's leaders gave careful answers. They spoke of regret, of hard choices, of lessons learned. But the truth was simple. They didn't know if they could stop it from happening again. Because even as they debated, another signal reached. Human space, a plea, a voice weak and trembling through the void. "Please, come." And someone, somewhere would answer. Because that was what humans did. They reached out. They listened. They responded. Even when they shouldn't. And far beyond human borders, other civilizations watched and waited. Some prepared for peace. Others, for war. Deep in the cold dark of space, an old message still floated among the stars, carried by forgotten satellites, repeated endlessly. Aliens pleaded for aid. They didn't expect Deathworlders to respond. No one knew who had first written those words, but they spread fast. They were warnings. They were legends. They were truth. And in the silence between stars, something else stirred. Something listening. Waiting. To see what the Deathworlders would do next. Centuries passed. The stars remembered. What had begun as a single mission, to answer a cry for help, had become something far greater. A warning. A myth. A lesson lost to time. Humans had once been unknown in the vastness of space. Now, they were feared. Whispers traveled between distant worlds. Traders told stories around cold fires. Diplomats spoke in hushed voices when human ships approached. "Remember the Valari?" they would ask. No one knew the full truth anymore. History had changed it, turned it into legend. Some said the humans had come with peace in their hands and fire in their hearts. Others claimed they had destroyed an entire species just to prove a point. But among the stars, one name remained: Deathworlders. In the ruins of the Red Planet, nothing lived. The floating cities had long since fallen. The last echoes of the Valari were gone. Only dust remained. And deep beneath the broken ground, the remains of the weapon lay buried under stone and silence, but not forgotten. On Earth, old records still existed, hidden in archives no one dared open, sealed away by those who feared what might happen if the past was repeated. A child once found one such record in a forgotten library. It was not a book, not a screen, just a thin strip of metal, etched, with words that had not been read in generations. She traced the letters with her fingers, reading aloud. We meant well. Elsewhere, on a ship drifting near the edge of known space, a captain stared at his console. A new signal had arrived. Weak. Far away. But unmistakable. Please. Come. He looked at his crew. They did not speak. They did not need to. They knew what came next, because that was what humans did. They answered, even when they should not. And across the galaxy, other eyes watched. Civilizations that had once welcomed humans now closed their borders. Those who had traded with Earth's people grew quiet. Some prepared for war. Others sent messages to allies, sharing what they had learned. Do not call for help unless you mean it, because if humans come, they may be the end. Deep in the dark, beyond the reach of any star, something listened, something waited, for the next plea, for the next mistake, for the next Deathworlders. Because the cycle never ended. It only began again, and somewhere, in the silent corners of space, a message pulsed through the void. Not from the Valari, not from the humans, but from someone else, someone new, someone asking, who are the Deathworlders? And what happens if they come for us?